Hi, today we'll be coding an animation starting from this pattern right here in the middle. We won't be trying to reproduce it exactly, we'll just get to coding and see what happens. Okay, so we're going to start with an n by n grid. So let's say we're going to have n16, and this is going to be the number of rows and the number of columns, and the total number of cells is going to be p, n times n. Okay, and now we're going to have within a grid element, we're going to have a loop. So for let I going from 0 all the way up to p, increment this I and create these box elements. Okay, now here in a style attribute, we'll be setting that n value, which is the number of rows, number of columns. Okay, so that we can pass it to the CSS. Now, if you've seen my previous videos, then you know I like to do something like this. On the body and on all div elements, just set display grid, because this really simplifies things. Okay, and now on our grid element, we are going to set grid template columns, and we're going to use repeat. The number is going to be that n, and let's say it's going to be something like 2m's. And we're going to set a background right here. And for our box elements, we are going to set an aspect ratio. We don't even have autocomplete for this one. This is brand new. It's supported out of the box in Chromium browsers, and in Firefox it still needs a flag which you enable as explained right here. I'll be linking to this. Okay, now let's get back here, and we're going to want to set a border. So let's say something like 4 pixels. So solid that b value, let's make this white, and we're going to use that as a gap as well. So grid gap. Okay, let's also use it as a padding. Okay, now having done this, let's maximize this because it gets annoying. One thing I don't like is now the height of the body is given by the height of its content, which is this grid. So let's make it full viewport height. So body height 100. Okay, now this stretches things and it gives us a scroll bar. Let's get rid of that. So let's get rid of the margin, because that gets rid of the scroll bar. And if you want, we can just go full nuclear, overflow hidden. So something like that. And we don't want those stretched right there, right? So let's set place content center. This puts everything in the middle, both horizontally and vertically. That's perfect. Now let's minimize this. We can collapse the grid, collapse the body for now. And here we're going to set a mask. So yeah, sadly this still needs a prefix. Repeating, and of course we want conic, but we don't have autocomplete for that one. So yeah, and we're going to start from an angle. Let's say that's going to be something 0 degrees. When am I going to learn not to click the key next to it? So we're going to have red and 0, 25%. Then we're going to have transparent 0, 50%. Let's see it. Okay, now we're going to want to register that custom property. So yeah, pretty sure that's not how you spell it. Angle, syntax, this is basically a type. So angle, I once wrote that as angel. So initial value, I mean, it's really difficult because these don't have autocomplete, so I end up writing funny things. Inherit, false, not necessary. Okay, now here we're going to have an animation. So first off, let's set keyframes, angle to half a turn or 180 degrees, same thing. Let's set an animation duration here, let's say something like that. Okay, and here we're going to have animation that animation duration easing out infinite. Let's see it. Okay, now let's say we want to round the endings. So we're going to do that with a blur and contrast. The thing is, for blur, I'm going to want a value that's going to be half the border. So we're going to start with a factor. So factor is going to be 2, and we're going to express this as a function of that factor. So like this, and here we're going to have filter, blur, and that factor times 1 pixel, and contrast. Now, if you've seen my previous videos, then you know I like to use 3 times the value in pixels here. So 3 times the pixel value for the blur. And I think that gives the best results. Now, this gives me another idea. So let's get rid of this. And let's use a negative margin right here. So half the border width. Okay, it's getting a bit more interesting. Something else, let's say we're going to have something like this. Okay, this looks a bit more interesting. Let's take care of animation delay, and for that we're going to need to set a row and column indices. But in the meanwhile, let's just comment that because my laptop sounds like it's going to take off. So here in a style element, we're going to have a loop, and that's going to be similar to this one, except it's going to use n right there, right? So we're going to have, first off, we're going to set the column indices. So box, nth child, so every n elements, right? And here we're going to have I plus 1, and it's plus 1 because the nth child index is 1 based as opposed to the loop index, which is 0 based. And here we're going to have the column index set to the loop index. And now we're going to take this, copy paste it, and we're going to have something similar. So we're going to take that out. So we're going to have, after all the items on the previous rows, on the previous I rows, so per row we have n items, and previously we have all those I rows. Okay, so here we're going to have j, the row index, right? So having done this, let's get back here, and we're going to set something like a mid index value, and this one is going to be calc and half times n minus 1, because the first index is 0, last index is n minus 1, and n minus 1 minus 0 is still n minus 1. Okay, so that's basically the midway index, the difference between the last index and the first index. And here we're going to have a difference. This is going to be per column, so difference I, and it's going to be calc I minus mid. Okay, and now we're going to have something similar for j. Okay, and then we're going to have the absolute value, and this one is going to be maximum between the difference for I and calc minus 1 times that difference. Okay, and then again something similar for j, right? Okay, let's refresh because for some reason, okay, let's maximize that. Let's get back here, and we're going to have an animation delay, and this one is going to be calc, and we're going to have the absolute value for I, abs j, and all divided by n, and we're going to multiply with the animation duration. And let's uncomment this and see the result. Okay, it doesn't quite seem to work. because you don't really have, oh yeah, I can't use a keyboard. Okay, much better. And it's going to be even better if we go the other way. So here we subtract 1. Let's go the other way. Let's see it. Okay, so much better. Something else I don't like is that they all go in the same direction, and we can fix that. Let's compute a sine here. So sine I, this one is going to be clamp, and we're going to have between -1, we're going to set that in a moment. So it's going to be between -1 and 1. And this one is going to be calc twice difference I, okay? And then we're going to take this and do the same for j, right? And here we're going to have transform scale, and we're going to use sine I and sine j, okay? Okay, now this looks better because you can see how they go, and they're symmetric with respect to the midlines, which is good. Okay, now let's make this a bit more colorful. Before we do that, let's just comment it again, because yeah, the fan is just so noisy at this point. So now here we're going to use 2 pseudo elements. So we're going to have before and after, right? And they're not going to show up unless we set content. And also we want them all to overlap. So we want them all to occupy the same one cell. So we're going to have grid before and after, and they're all going to have grid area, first row, first column. So basically the grid of the body is just one cell at the intersection between the first row and first column. Now we're going to have our before. So before, let's give it a background. And this is going to be dark, but not quite black. So something like this. And here we're also going to set mixed blend mode, lighten, and this gives us that gray background, which is good. Now for the after, let's set the background. Radial gradient, we're going to use that list of colors we have right there at the top. Okay, and let's also set mixed blend mode, darken. Let's see it. Okay, now here let's say circle, something like this. Okay, and let's get back here and comment that value. But first, let's take this, right? Take that out and set here. So do that. Now the thing is, because of Houdini, it's not going to work in Firefox, and we've also used aspect ratio, which doesn't work in Safari. So for now it's still going to be just Chromium, but you know, just future-proof it. So yeah, and I guess this is pretty much it. I don't think I'll be tweaking it any further. I'll just be leaving it like this. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you like the work that I'm putting out since early 2012 and you want me to be able to do more in the future, please consider supporting it. You can do so by being a cool cat and becoming a patron on Patreon, or if monthly support is not your style, I now have one-time donation. There's that option. It's going to be linked in the description, just like the Patreon account, and you can also get me something off my Amazon wishlist, a present for Easter or something. That's going to be linked in the description as well. Or you can at least share this to show the world what can be done with CSS these days, because honestly I think it's pretty damn cool. In any event, thanks for watching, and until next time, bye!